When did you start with podcasting?
I started a couple years ago, um, and it was just sort of an excuse to share my friends with other people, right? Like friends of mine that ran a comedy club or were artists, or I got a friend that's a magician, comedian. So I just started like, yeah, I meet so many interesting people. I wanted to kind of share them with others. So it's called Love What You Do, and I basically interview people that have managed to combine their passion with a way to make money, which is kind of
That's great.
it's
That's
the
great.
dream. Yeah. So
That's awesome. Well, let's jump right in, my friend.
let's do it. So, Chris, could you give just a little background? We met at Park House. You were a speaker on the seventh floor, and I was fortunate enough to be brought up by one of the members that works in my office. And it was the first time I had been at a Park House event, and you were there, and up on the screen it said, "Plan your 500 year," or no, like your 500-year plan. And I was like, "Woof!" Like I'm trying to figure out my 1 year, my 2 year, and so it was this really cool zooming out, and you introduced me to the Medici family and a lot of the principles that um, that made them successful. And there was so much there, but if you could just kind of give a quick background on yourself, professionally, personally, and we'll start there.
Very happy to do so, Sean. It was a great pleasure to meet you in Houston. So I'm from Frankfurt, Germany. Originally, my family's from South Africa and Germany. I grew up in between these two worlds. I studied law at Frankfurt University. Technically, I'm a German lawyer by
Mhm.
training and background, even though I've never had a proper job in my life. I've never worked as a lawyer. I've always been an entrepreneur, creating all kinds of different
Right.
entities and venues and things. And so, yeah, I've probably got a head start in business early on. My uncle from South Africa, he was a full-blown entrepreneur and he wanted to do some real estate projects in Germany. And I raised my hand and said, "Uncle, let's do it together." So
Mhm.
I bought my first apartment complex while I was still kind of in school. And then, yeah, I set up a catering business, started opened up some shops at Frankfurt Airport,
Awesome.
bought lots of cars, did all kinds of stuff there. Yeah, I
Like
started
cars for investments.
what's that?
You said bought a lot of cars. Was that like an
No,
entrepreneurship?
no, no. Bought a
Just
lot of cars for to do a catering business. We were
uh,
delivering food all over Frankfurt, and yeah. So yeah. Anyhow, out of
awesome.
that, just grew in a sense a lot of different investment opportunities and entrepreneurial ventures over the last few years. I live now currently between Germany and Spain. I live on the island of Mallorca with my family. So I've got a wife and we've got three teenage boys. One of them is already off for university, or two of them are still at home. And I'm not operational in any one of the businesses anymore. I, I,
Mhm.
I own like 26 different companies by now. A lot of things. We've got a family office set up outside of Frankfurt, and
Yeah,
so we do all kinds of investments. But that's kind of my background.
amazing. And then we can't forget the book you wrote, which you sent me, which I appreciate.
Yes, get your house in order. So I wrote
Yeah.
a book on the Medici family, and this is the talk you were referencing. So
Mhm.
I a few years ago studied Italian and wrote myself back in university for some art history classes and became fascinated about the Renaissance period. Took a lot of trips over to Italy, and out
Wow.
of that became an expert on the Medici family. I wrote a book on Cosimo, which is the founding father of the Medici Empire. These were these great patrons of the arts.
Wow.
That really the Renaissance family. So if you've ever been to Florence, Italy, this is kind of
I
that
have.
they developed the whole city, and so the palazzos, the churches, the cathedral, everything goes back to the Medici family. And I just took great interest in that. And I'm actually writing another book here at the moment on Lorenzo, the grandson
Oh,
of
okay.
Cosimo. And
Amazing.
he discovered Michelangelo, and
Yeah.
Botticelli was his famous favorite artist. And yeah, so I love kind of history, but I'm really coming out through the business lens. How do you set up your family, your business, and your legacy in a sense? And so that's why the question you earlier asked I like to ask people the long-term question is, in 500 years,
Yeah.
where do you want to be?
Yeah.
But next to being dead, you're going to be dead in 500 years. But
Yeah,
is,
but
is
it's
there
but
any
it
is there any kind of legacy you want people to be remembering in 500 years?
right. And it's interesting, again, back to the speech, I came from a middle class, lower middle class family. And as my career, again, I'm an entrepreneur. I've never had a job, an official job. And as I meet more and more successful people and very wealthy people, it's been very interesting for me, the kind of the perception I have and then the reality. And we host these family office networking events at Park House, and everyone's got the same struggles. Everyone's dealing with um, what's it called? What's it called when you what's the term? Um, 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 where you think you don't belong. It's imposter syndrome. Like everyone's dealing with a lot of the same things. And one of the things that I noticed was very common in the discussions of the family office is like how to make sure the children of very wealthy people, have a fire in their belly and are successful and understand financial literacy and all these things that having lots of wealth can make harder. So it's been very interesting kind of um, uh, learning that there's a lot of principles and common threads across everyone that everyone's kind of trying to deal with, and it's really I've enjoyed in your book um, a lot of the principles that you share from not only just from Cosimo, but other individuals you mentioned, even like Richard Branson and other people that I also look up to. That there's a lot of fundamental principles that will get you success. And I can definitely, where I'm at in my life, it's like I find sometimes I'm sort of scatterbrained and run thin, and I lack focus. And so your book's been very helpful in sort of helping me zoom out back into some of these principles that have worked for, you know, thousands of years for people. that,
Well,
you know,
thanks a lot for saying that, Sean. And
yeah,
and really, my great passion now is to help entrepreneurs and business owners because I'm at this family office level. I speak with a lot of very wealthy families.
yeah,
But since I really have always been an entrepreneur myself and just haven't inherited any money yet,
yeah,
we really share this passion of also to figure out, how do you set up your life.
yeah,
It's not that easy to create success, but at the same time to steward your family well. So
right.
one of our stories is that we really had a big family crisis in 2020 as a family.
Mm,
So in Germany, we were on this brutal lockdown,
yeah,
and my kids couldn't go to school. My wife wasn't doing well, and yeah, I kind of. In many ways, a bunch of business deals didn't work out the way I had envisioned them. The interest rates started climbing, and
everything.
and yeah, we really need to kind of figure out again all over, what's our setup. And so my experience is that, throughout life, there are these pivotal moments where you basically have to reassess, how do you set up yourself? How do you set up your family? How do you set up your business?
Yeah,
And so gave the book the title "Get Your House in Order," because the reality is we all have something that we need to put in order. And we need to look at, the different rooms in our house. How are we doing that? And thank God there are lots of great examples out of history of
yeah,
families and entrepreneurs and successful people that we can learn from. So I've always been a student, kind of history and learning. And so, my endless passion is reading. So I read a
52
minimum
books
of
a year.
52 books a year.
Yeah,
Yeah, for the last 25 years, I've been doing that. So I'm
yeah,
very passionate about that. Um, and so, yeah, I'm always looking for the principles. So
yeah,
this is kind of, what you're referencing is that, there are some principles that can help us, guide us, and in a sense, make us more successful. And in a sense, success is not just on the money side, but really also, how do you live your marriage? How do you curate good relationships with
Yeah,
business partners, but also with your kids? And how do you create an impact in the world? Because at some point, we also want to go beyond just,
of course.
business stuff and making money. We really also want to create an impact, and I would say a family legacy. So these are the conversations I'm now constantly involved in since I'm not operational anymore. I really have time to be working with high impactful situations and people.
Yeah, it's amazing because you talk about how the Medici family, and I might miss some, but how they infiltrated is a strong word, but how they became involved with different aspects of society, religion, politics, architecture, art, and how what I remember from your speech also was that I found fascinating. We think of all these artists and we like hold them up, and you know we at the time they were like bricklayers. They were like just regular, you pay someone to clean your house or lay bricks or paint your you know portrait, no big deal, but because the Medici family, and I'm sure others, allowed them to stay, and they paid for their living expenses and basically fostered that artist, and then that really allowed them to kind of blossom and become these amazing um historical figures. And a lot of the art, it's like if you don't have the people supporting them, you don't get the art, and so there's like a responsibility for the whole team of everyone involved in that venture. So of all the principles, because there's a lot of people that are, on their way up. I'm definitely one of those people. And what are some of the like most important principles you would tell someone who is is kind of on their way to success?
Well, it depends on which realm you want to be successful in. But let's talk about the business setup here
Sure.
for
Yeah.
um, even though what you were just referencing about, the sponsoring the artist, I actually I've got one chapter in the book just titled "Choose Your Donatello." So, who are you
Mm.
sponsoring? Who are you mentoring? Who are you raising up to become the next Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo? So, I think that's a great principle. But let's
Yeah.
stay with the realm of business. Actually, this month we so I've started creating a business community with our business owners from around the world. So I think we have now members from 25 different countries, and we get together. I do a conference here on the island of Mallorca, and we get together in Florence. But this month we're discussing the principle of unleashing force multipliers. And I think
Mm.
this may be something that is very practical and applicable to whatever you're trying to do. So I can't even tell you, Sean, how often I'm thinking through this, even for my own setup. So here's how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Cosimo de' Medici set up this incredible banking empire.
Yeah.
They were based in Florence, Italy, but they started setting up bank branches. So they were cloth merchants and they went into banking. And if you look at the map of Europe back then, they literally set up this incredible empire all over Europe, like in Italy, different cities, and in Switzerland, and in France, and in Belgium, all the way up to England. They had a bank branch up in England that
Wow.
they were running. And so, how do you do that? Like 600 years ago, no internet, no communication, no telephone, no trains,
Ambition.
no cars, no airplanes. Yeah. How do you set up a banking empire 600 years ago in Europe without? And the secret is that they built some very strong relationships
Right.
with other families, and in a sense unleashed their network in order to bring back business to them as a family. And so I've termed a whole chapter "Unleashing Force Multipliers." Is we all have something we're building out, our dream, our vision, our business, our products, our services, and so often we're focused in on just what can we do, what can I do, what can my team do or my employees do. Whereas I took away from the Medici story that they really didn't just think about what can we do, but how could we tap into others people's influence and their family strength and their systems that they've created and to, in a sense, multiply what we're doing. And so I'm often asking entrepreneurs the question
Hmm.
is, who could totally change your game if you were connected with them. Maybe a business, maybe a business person, maybe a family, it may be a bank, it may be an investor.
Yeah.
Who could totally change your game? And so, in a sense, I go through an exercise where, I love to write literally in my notebook,
Love it.
and I encourage business guys to do the same. But basically, sit down for half
Make a
an hour,
list.
just note down what the topic is force multipliers. Who could totally change your game? You may put Richard Branson on that list,
Right.
because you just mentioned him, and just write down all these, and then so once you've gone through that exercise, really on the next page, you really kind of think, okay, so how could I get in touch with them? How could I get an introduction? What do I need to do? Which airplane do I need to catch? What money do I need to invest? Which conference do
What
I need
events do they go to?
what events do they need to go to? So I was just in Florence here with about 15 business people that flew in from all over the world, and one of them they just came from Richard Branson, actually from his little island there,
Yeah.
and I've been invited probably, I don't know how many times, to that island and to meet Richard Branson. Now, I haven't done it, even though I like him. I think he's a phenomenal business guy. But
Yeah.
there's ways on how to sit on his island, and it's actually
Yep.
not. I think it's like a 25K ticket,
Yeah.
and you can hang out for a few days with him on his island and chat about whatever you want to chat about. And
Yeah.
so I think some business guys really just need to think through who could be a force multiplier. So instead of just, trying to optimize your own little system and, I don't know, screaming more at your team and
Yeah.
kicking them to do more
Or
work,
spending more on
there could,
ads or yeah.
yeah, strategic alliances would be another, word. Or, another term that we use in business is joint ventures. So, if you think in terms of some industries are very familiar with that. Other industries basically never do that. But a joint
Yeah.
venture is basically think about, Sean, what do you bring to the table? What's unique about you? What kind of assets do you have? This may be money, resources, knowledge,
Actions,
systems,
whatever.
connections, whatever.
Mhm.
What do you bring to the table? And then who would benefit from you actually bringing that to the table? And then, set up a conversation and really think through a joint venture. And then, I don't know, you can do a profit share split, whatever. You can create a joint product together. Obviously, this should be someone that you're aligned with on your values.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about this constantly because the level I'm flying at now, it's really and not about me being more operational. I'm not operational. If you look
Strategic.
at my life, I don't like to be operational. I've done that for 25 years, and I've led teams, and I've led ventures and business, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm all that I'm doing now is really just thinking through and taking the time to build strategic alliances and invest myself into other entrepreneurs and business families. And out of that, opportunities are being created, companies are being launched.
Yeah.
I have 26 companies under my wings with lots of employees and people and lots of money flying around, but I'm not operational. So I've set them up. And this
Yeah.
is another topic we talk about, like self-managing businesses. Like, it's really not up to me to, be in it actively. But then you have really some time to work on these other connections, and that's just very powerful.
Right. Yeah, and you can't be operational in 25 businesses. You have to set it up so you're out of the day to day to scale. So you mentioned making sure someone has the same values, and I've run into this before where I've gotten into partnerships and then later realized we don't have the same values, and that can be very frustrating. Um, how do you determine someone's values? What is that, just a gut thing for you, or do you have any
Well,
strategies or
first of all, you really need to know your own values. I mean,
mm,
how can you how can you assess someone else's values if you are unclear or fuzzy about your own values?
Yeah.
So again, I'm,
Writing down.
I'd like to point to my notebook
Yeah.
here. Is I journal and write down the things that are important to me, like on a constant basis. So
Good.
I, can spell out and even point to pages in my notebook where I've
Right.
listed down this is what is important to me. And over time, also, some of our priorities change. Now,
Right.
values, obviously are influenced by our background, by the faith tradition we come from, by our life philosophy and all these things. But the first thing I would say is you really need to know what you stand for. Now, Sean, who are you? What's important to you? Where do you not compromise? And
Yeah.
so this is very important. And only then can you really
Find
assess
your match.
someone else's values.
Got it. Okay, so let's take you just for kind of a thought experiment. If I were trying to do a strategic partnership with you, what are the things that, or anybody listening, what are the things that you need, or what would be the pieces or puzzle pieces that someone could approach you and go, hey, this is what I have to offer that might interest you?
Yeah, so for me at the moment, my one topic that I uh, like to not just discuss, but really build influence around is the topic of legacy.
Yeah.
I'm after 25 years of doing business and setting up also lots of non-profit organizations, family foundation.
Hmm.
We basically, as a family, have decided that we want to multiply our influence, so to speak, on the topic of legacy by building out these connections with people around the world.
Yeah.
And so I'm taking a lot of time at the moment speaking at family office events, private member clubs, big conferences. So I've done a lot of public speaking, and people pay me a lot of money to do this, at large venues and give keynotes.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it for the money. This all goes into our family foundation. I'm not doing it for money. I'm really interested in adding to the legacy conversation that is happening worldwide, and specifically for entrepreneurs and business owners. So I always say that the people that I connect best with, that I can help, that I can add value to, is entrepreneurs and business owners, because that's who
Yeah.
I am. This is who we are as a family.
You
And
understand each
so,
other.
back to your question, what value can you bring to me? Well, if you are connected with families, if you yourself are willing to invest your time into legacy creation, I'd be very interested to see what we could do together.
Yeah. And when you say invest in legacy creation, what does that mean? Like ways to build your legacy or the legacies of the people you work with, or
So in a sense, I'm at this stage already in my life, and I'm very thankful and I feel blessed because of that. By the way,
yeah.
this is part of my values, that I have a Christian faith background where I just feel blessed by God that
Yeah.
we're already at this level, that I'm not in my 70s thinking about legacy.
Yeah.
I'm in my 40s, and I can
Amazing.
already add to it. So I feel like, in a sense, it's my responsibility to now give back and add and create impact. And so the way I want to do that, or we want to do that, is through investing ourselves into other families. So it's really
Hmm.
like a giving a proposition. Where can we add value? So here's what I'm doing. I've created some masterminds. I've created some inner circles. I've created some formats where I actually host and bring together business owners and entrepreneurs to really be working on their legacy. So that's what I'm interested in.
Awesome. Um, Very cool. So, tell us about the mastermind. Do you mind?
Well, one of the most effective things that I've personally experienced is that if I get outside my normal operational realm in the past,
Yeah.
and spend time with high quality people offsite in order to think through, my own strategy. And the strategy can be for my business or my family or my life setup. And so I've participated in a bunch, and years ago, I already started putting together some masterminds. And these are, paid masterminds where people pay in order to do that. And the reason is very simple is, we take things serious when we pay to that.
Yeah.
Again, I'm, even though I'm a business guy and I can be very transactional, and now everything that I do and work on is on our family foundation. So for me, it's not about making more money, but these are,
Yeah.
12,000, 25K to spend a couple days together on a regular basis, go through an exercise for us to be helping each other. And this has been incredible force multipliers in my life. Now I can
I'm sure.
uh, take back. I can go back to some of the mastermind people that I've been in touch with over the years who've literally totally changed my game. And I've been involved with entrepreneurs who've created, I don't know, who've had 20, 30,000 people employed as part of their business setup. I've had hedge fund guys who built hedge fund businesses into the billions. I've had
Yeah.
billionaires sit around the campfire with me. So lots of
Yeah.
things where just basically I was participating, and then it really kind of gave me a new insight, strategy, thinking, or resources that I was looking for, and that totally changed my game. So I'm a big believer in that, and so we've started setting this up here, partly in Europe, partly in the US, where I bring together, business owners.
Is there anything that you've realized, like in these masterminds? Is there, common challenges that people face or common issues that they need to overcome, whether it's like personal or business? Is there anything that you see a lot of?
100%, Sean. It's 100%. Here's, well, we can talk about one topic. One topic
Yeah.
is, how do you, and while you're creating a successful business, also create a successful family?
Mm,
That is a huge
100%.
tension for everyone who is not just surviving in business, but is
Yeah.
really thriving in business. We all have the challenge. How do we, you know, not mess up our marriage? How do we not, mess up our children?
Yeah.
Um, and how do we thrive also on our family realm? So this is one topic that I personally had to learn so much, on how to do that, because I've
Yeah.
always been driven. I've always been kind of, no one ever needs to tell me that I need some goals in my life. I grew up, in
Yeah.
kindergarten. I already had goals of what I wanted to achieve, and so I've always been there. But I really need to learn also on how to balance this off in a sense with family success. Now here's what I would say after lots of conversations and my own experience. It's not an either or. It's not either success or family. You can
Yeah.
actually create both, but it takes intentionality. It takes a strategy, and you need to learn about this. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you share some of that in the book, how you um, you know,
Yeah, and by the
look
way,
back.
this book, I'm happy to, I send you a free copy. I'm not even selling the book. So you can
Yeah.
get a download on medicilegacy.com. Medici Legacy, Medici Legacy, however you want to pronounce it.
Yeah.
In Italian, it's Medici.
You gotta talk with your hands.
Medicilegacy.com.
Yeah.
And there's a link to my book. You can get it as a free download. If you're an entrepreneur, business owner, you can also fill out the box, and I'll send you a hard
Yeah.
copy. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's
I'll
it's
sh-
it's one way on how I'm adding value, trying to add value.
I'll share the link. Do you have you, you're obviously a mentor to a lot of people. Did you have a mentor on your way up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say two things. Number one, as I've always been this avid reader, as I mentioned
Mhm.
before, I read 52 books minimum per year. I've always considered people out of world history to be my mentors.
Yeah.
So I've done deep dives on many different successful business leaders, but also world leaders that I've just studied. And I always felt like they're sitting on my shoulders, teaching me on how to overcome struggles and
Yeah.
hurdles and conflict and the messiness of life in order to be successful. So I'm a big proponent for mentorship through world history and through people that we can study and learn from. So that's one thing. And then secondly, yeah, I've had some wonderful people who invested in me. First in business, my uncle when I was just starting off, 18 years of age, I just finished high school. My uncle, he was living in South Africa. He was running some projects in Africa, and
Hmm.
literally, I just climbed on a plane, flew to Nairobi, Kenya, and
Hmm.
they said, "Hey, I'll be your intern. I'll follow you around. I'll carry your briefcase, and I'll do whatever helps to
Hard to say
serve the
no to that.
project." And so out of that, I became very knowledgeable about construction and real estate,
Yeah.
and he then later on, we became equity partners and even
Right.
started doing business together. And so, I think this is actually one reason why I'm now inspired to be a mentor
Mhm.
and and a leverage builder for other people because I've experienced that. And I wouldn't be where I am without that mentorship.
Yeah, yeah, and likewise, I've had so many people in my life, and um, it is, I mean, to me, it's just common sense, but I don't think enough people realize that if you just offer to help someone and you say, "Hey, I'll work for free," the amount of value you're going to get out of that relationship, it lowers their risk. They're willing to give you a shot, and then if you show up and you're valuable to them, then you're getting paid, or you become a partner, or Um, so yeah, that's an interesting idea. So when you work with someone that you're mentoring, is there an onboarding process? Do you have like a questionnaire? Is there some sort of kind of a philosophy on figuring out? I guess for me
So
personally, go ahead.
yeah, Sean, I've built a whole framework because
Yeah.
I've been successful and featured on all kinds of platforms for that.
Hmm.
A lot of people want to get in touch with me and want to, in a sense, also be mentored. And so the only way, and I was always like, I want to help. Yes, Sean, if you ask me, yeah, I'd say yes.
Yeah.
So I figured I need a framework and I need a system on how I
Yeah.
do that in an organized way so that I don't go crazy and you still feel like it's really adding to you. So I've
Yeah.
literally had to structure on how we do that. So I'm happy to walk you through it, but there's a
Yeah.
whole process just depending on where you are at in your career. And so as I say, I only do this with entrepreneurs and business owners. So
Yeah.
if you're on a payroll, if you're a C-suite leader,
Yeah.
I know to create programs on leadership development for people like that. Now, I can't help you on that because I've never been a C-suite leader. I've never
It's a
done
different
corporate
mindset.
never done a corporate job in my life. So I've always
Mm.
paid my own bills. I've had my own employees. I've had my own risk, and I've had the ups and downs of owning companies. And so
Yeah.
so that's where I can add value. And then we need to figure out what's your level of engagement, and then we have to walk you through that.
Yeah, I would love that. I find that, and it's interesting when you mention sort of individuals from history that you are influenced by, and they're sitting on your shoulder and sort of helping guide you. I find that with social media today, there's like a lot of noise, and I always try to remind myself, I to not take financial advice from people that are not wealthy. Don't take health advice from people that are not healthy. And I think a lot of time we get a lot of advice on social media because things sound good, they become popular and they go viral. And and this is like important for me now is to make sure that the information that's going in my head that's sitting on my shoulder and helping me make decisions is coming from authority, people like you said from history. So that's important. And then for me personally, I feel that I'm in this position where I've got a variety of skill sets, And I think one of my biggest sort of curses is I can figure out how to do anything. And the
Yeah,
problem
so Sean,
is
let me just say,
yeah.
focus.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so from how I'm hearing you even describe your own situation,
Yeah.
I think you're a great generalist and have a very broad skill set. You've been blessed with lots of great gifts. Now, with someone with that profile, there's only one word that you need is focus. Okay,
The,
it's one word, focus. And so the question is, what is your focus, and how can you get laser sharp? And there's this old example of, if you think of light, if light is just kind of broad and
right.
yes,
Dusk.
but it will not bring the results like a laser
Mhm.
that can literally cut through steel or sharpen diamonds.
Right.
You can get laser sharp. So the one question is focus, and this is actually why for me, some of these offsite meetings, outside your normal environment, you literally you need to get outside your familiar space and really get crystal clear on your
Yeah.
vision, mission, and goals. And then basically when you come down from the mountain, then you have a plan of action, and you have to say no to everything
Everything
else in
else. Yeah.
order to be successful in that round. So this is what I would say is necessary.
Yeah. So the next question then is how do you, and I know it comes from you, right? Like, but what if you sit on the mountain with your notebook and you have 10 focus? Like how do you decide what metrics do you
Yeah.
use to
So again, you take your notebook and you write, let's say on 2 pages,
Mhm.
you know, things that you feel is on your heart where you think you could do something. And let's say we stay in the realm of business. Okay, let's take different
Yeah.
areas of your life. I'm interested in all of them, but let's say you just your business. What is business opportunities and passions and skill set that you have where you could really now go, and so just write that all down, and then once you have the list, you have to circle the four that are absolutely that give you the most return on your investment.
Got it.
And so everything else needs to go. So you're only allowed to circle four. And then you really need to take that out and kind of start working on these
Right.
more specifically.
So the rough draft is more emotional fulfillment, joy, kind of what you enjoy doing.
This may be also a bunch of opportunities. So
Yeah.
I don't know your life situation
Mhm.
that much, but I can tell you that I am constantly bombarded with great opportunities. Okay,
Yeah.
my life is full of wonderful opportunities. People write me emails. I get pitch decks for investments. There are
Yeah.
people who want to do joint ventures. There's a lot of opportunity within one week. I
Yeah.
travel a lot, and so I get exposed also to a lot of people. If I told you just the last week on what kind of people I've been hanging out with,
Yeah.
it's just so, and everyone, and these are all, so there's a lot of opportunity. Okay.
Right.
Now, if you don't have, by the way, if you don't have lots of opportunities, you need to get out there because
Totally.
they're all
Yeah.
over. So if, I mean,
I'm
I just
there.
told you
I'm I'm
how,
I'm in
so
that
if
position. Yeah.
Okay, so not yeah, so there's a strategy. If you don't have opportunities and you do have opportunities, let's say you have lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, then it's really about getting crystal clear which one of these opportunities are you gonna chase, and that's where we need focus. And then
Right.
here's how I would describe it, Sean. Most most successful entrepreneurs that I've met throughout my life have made their money in one core business or core industry.
Right.
Now, at a later stage, you can diversify, go
Right.
left and right and everywhere, but there must be one core industry where you really say, oh, you know what?
That
I'm going to
gets you there.
put my heads down and I'm going to make my first few millions in this industry. and everything else needs to wait until I've made my few millions and I've banked some money. Until then, I'm not going to be a Renaissance person.
Right.
As much as I like to help people on becoming Renaissance people, you
Yeah.
first need to hone down on one core industry.
Awesome. I appreciate that. It's very helpful. And I'll go and write out all of the opportunities. It's like, I mean, it's an exercise I've been needing to do for a while. And it is, like you said, when you're in that moment, I mean, for me, it's not at the volume of that you're at, but it is interesting that the people I meet, even at like Park House, sitting at the bar, some of these people are just incredibly successful. And there's so many opportunities, which almost pulls me thinner, so you really have to focus so that when you meet people, you can decide if pursuing that relationship's in line with where you're headed and your values, like you said. So um really, really helpful. um on a personal note, and kind of family and health, and mental health and physical health, and anything on that end, do you want to kind of touch on that? I think that's an important aspect. I think Richard Branson said, like, the number one, what's the best thing, or the most important aspect of success, and I think he said working out was like the number one. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, Sean. I mean, when I talk to people about uh, you know physical exercise, I normally say that it's not it's only 50% for the body,
Right.
and the other 50% is actually for your brain.
100%.
And I can't fully explain it, biochemically, other than I know that there are some endorphins released when you kind of do a workout.
Yeah.
I have always managed my stress um, by doing exercise.
Yep.
And a lot of people nowadays have jobs where they sit behind bloody desk or look at computer screens,
Yep.
or do lots of emails. By the way, I don't. I haven't read an email within the last 2 years. Okay, so I'm not
Wow.
reading emails. Well,
Does someone do that for you?
I've got a yeah, I've got an assistant, so
Amazing.
Paula,
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
can touch with. So she runs
That's
my
great.
life. Basically, she all she does is run my life, my calendar, my email box, and there's a briefing in the morning. She lets me know
Yeah.
what is there, but I don't do that. Anyhow, but back to the physical exercise question. 50% of why you do physical exercise is actually not for your body, it's actually for your brain,
Yeah.
because you release, it kind of clears up. It's like sleep.
Sure.
We need sleep, and there's all the signs out. We need sleep also, to get rid of the toxins that we have. And so the same is
Yeah.
true for your well-being. And yeah, so I've been on this very rigid training exercise. I hired some personal trainers,
Mhm.
but my rule is basically when I'm here on my island, I go every day and I exercise. So already today I've been 40 minutes on the, I don't know, the treadmill or whatever that is, and
Awesome.
then we do weights and all kinds of stuff. And I do sauna every day. I do sauna and exercise
Yeah.
every day. So when I'm here at home. Now, I travel a lot, and the only thing that my assistant knows I want of a hotel,
Hmm.
other than nice category, is
Yeah.
that I want a gym in the hotel.
Totally.
Now, I'll be honest, I don't always make it to the gym because you arrive and you immediately have to go into some meetings or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm on a very strict exercise plan as well.
Yeah. It's great. Awesome. Well, is there anything else that I should ask, or that you want to share?
No, it's great to connect with you, Sean. And
Yeah.
I loved your personality. That's why I agreed to be on your podcast here
Appreciate that.
today, and want to add value. I'm again, I'd love to deepen our conversation here. I think there's some ways on how I can help you.
Yeah.
Let me just
Mhm.
touch on one last subject. So
Please.
next to me, helping families on legacy creation. I invite people to come with me to Florence, Italy, and spend some time, or we do a conference in Mallorca.
Hmm.
The other realm that that kind of has developed very naturally out of that. I told you that I have 26 different companies set up, and people all the time have come up to me and said, Chris, how in the world do you do that? You run all these companies and you've got all these people, but how in the world do you do that? And so I've designed, actually, it's with my brother. He's the CEO of lots of the companies that I steward. We've designed a self-managing business framework where literally we do some boot camps where here in Mallorca or in the US, where we invite entrepreneurs to come in and to create what we call a self-managing business. Self-managing business means that your business is so set up that you don't need to be operational in the business. You can really
Yeah.
work on the business. That means you can, do other fun things in the world, blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't mean you stop leading the business,
Right.
but you're not in the daily operational stuff. And there are ways on how to set that up. And it starts with, kind of lead generation. How do you have new clients kind of get in? And, how do you convert them? And, what kind of office do you have? And then how
Right.
do you set up systems for operations and so forth and so forth. So we've started helping entrepreneurs and business owners, whether you have, five employees or or a couple of hundred. We've actually found lots of them are too involved in the daily operations and in the business. And so there are ways on how to set that up. And that's where, I'd also be very willing to help. So
Amazing.
managelegacy.com is the website to find out some more information. There's also contact details. There's more programs behind the scenes that, we don't do any big advertising or marketing because we really it grows totally out of referrals, and we've got
Sure.
lead overflow, I would say. So, but yeah, very, very happy for you to get in touch or one of your listeners here.
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know it's later in the day for you. You're probably having dinner here soon. But
Yes,
yeah,
we're going. I'm gonna take my wife now to a lovely dinner. We're meeting some good friends of ours here for a
amazing.
nice tapas dinner.
Nice. Well, enjoy. And again, thank you so much for coming on today. Appreciate it. Of
Thank you so much, Sean. All the best. Hey, and thanks for this great interview.
course. Thank you.